Yo, welcome to I'm My Own Aesthetic. I am your host, Nigel Staley. If this is your first time listening, IMO is a space for honest conversation. More importantly, is a space for safe, honest conversation. And today's episode is a personal one. And I want to have this conversation because I feel like we sometimes glamorize self awareness when in actuality, getting to know yourself can be, in my case, very, very tough, very lonely, very hard, very confusing. But it's real and it's a journey. And although you go through all the roller coasters of emotions, it's something good and it's real and there's a brightness at the end of it. So we're gonna get straight into it. If I pause a lot, if I look off a lot, if I stare off into the abyss, just stay with me because, like I mentioned this last episode, this is not something that's not me. Um, but I came to the realization: how could I expect anybody else to come on here and talk about anything if I'm not even comfortable enough to talk about anything that I'm dealing with? If that makes sense. Um, so we're gonna get straight into it, and I'm just gonna let y'all a little bit into my world. And we're gonna talk about the things that I've came to the realization that I'm struggling with. Um, I've had to look in that mirror and be very brutally honest with myself. Um, so without further ado, we're gonna get straight into it. I struggle with understanding my own emotions. I always knew I felt things deeply, especially as a kid, but I didn't always know what I was feeling or why I was feeling those things. I always thought emotions had to make sense and that if I couldn't explain them, then they weren't valid. So really, I just began avoiding emotions altogether. And I know that sounds crazy, but growing up, I was raised that I had to be tough. It was it wasn't anything else to it. It's just you gotta be tough. It is what it is. Like going about through life. Like for example, like if we're gonna go like deep emotions and upsetness, like what you crying for? Like there ain't no need to cry. Like things along that nature. Um, even like overly happy, overly excited, calm down. Things along that nature. And with all that, I think I just grew up being confused about what emotions were, and that I ended up confusing feelings with being dramatic. And I know it's gonna sound so crazy when I say this, but if I'm being completely honest, I feel like having emotions does not make me human. And I am a big hypocrite because I tell everybody emotions are just about being human. But when it comes to me, I just don't have that connection with them. And so if I do start to feel something or if I think that I'm feeling something and instead of me trying to dive into it, I'm just like, why am I feeling these things? Like I don't have the right to feel these things. And it's been that way for a long time. Now I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm just a robot. I'm aware that I start to feel things and I'm aware that I may have excitement. I may have sadness, things along that nature, but what makes it hard, I don't know why I feel those things. And the even more crazy part about it, I don't dive into why I feel them things. I just feel like it's not normal. And if I'm being completely honest, I have neglected myself into thinking that feeling any type of emotion is a weakness. But I am learning, and I'm learning that emotions are just messages and they don't always have to be logical. They really just need to be heard. And when I ignore my emotions, they don't disappear. They just find louder ways to present themselves. So I have to continuously remind myself that understanding myself isn't about me having it all figured out. It's just about me being curious about myself. And if anybody out there is like me, if anybody out there kind of understands what I say to myself and what I want you to take from it. That understanding yourself, if that's something you struggle with, is just like learning a language that's never been taught to you. And that's something I have to remind myself. I have to remind myself that although things happened for me to get to this point, it was myself that neglected diving in and understanding it. And that's just a hard pill I've had to swallow. I've always wanted to blame it on other people. I've always wanted to blame it on, oh, well, I was taught this. And when these things happened to me, it was like that. But although all of that is valid, the biggest issue is what I took from it. And I ended up building this. I'm not going to say I'm a monster, but I built this monster of a situation where it's hard for me to express myself. It's hard to me to explain why something rubs me the wrong way. It's honestly hard for me to navigate anything emotion wise because I've found out that I have a lot of triggers. I've had a lot of things that make me click either in a negative way or a positive way, and I have no clue why. So it's just like I said, it's just I've had to look in that mirror and I've had to really take a step back and take a look at myself. More importantly, I had to take myself outside of my body and then look at myself. Another thing that I struggle with is I hold myself to a very, very, very unhealthy standard. And I've always been hard on myself. And I try to call it ambition, but I'm realizing that I'm just using a positive term to disguise an unhealthy behavior. I just personally hold myself to an impossible standard. And if I'm being honest, it's because somewhere along the way I've confused progression with perfection. But what makes it even worse is not only do I feel like I have to reach this perfect standard, but I also have to perform. Like, presence alone doesn't feel enough to me. I have to prove that I can figure it out. I have to prove that I know what I'm doing. And more or less in the emotional realm, I have to prove that I am okay. And what's so sick about it, I genuinely know perfection isn't even achievable. It's not attainable. It's not even possible. It's not a possible thing to do. But something within myself makes me feel like I have to be. Like I can't not be perfect. I don't know where that came from. It's something that happened online. And like I said, I'm not into my emotions, but I am trying to figure out all these things, why I'm triggered, why these situations are, and like why I am the way I am. I'm trying to figure out my own aesthetic. And it's been a journey. It's been rough. It's been tough, I will say. But honestly, it's like I'm at this never ending battle with myself. And it's just really unhealthy. And I don't know where it came from. Like I said, I am very much in this path. And also, this, like I said, this is why I wanted to start the podcast because I am a big advocate on going to therapy. But if you probably haven't figured out by now, I am also probably never going to go to therapy. I want to. I strive. Like, I want to. Like, that's something that I've even looked up therapists. I've looked up places to go. I ask people about it. I advocate that people should go, but it's almost like there's something in me like, nah, you're not able to. Like, you don't do that. I even sometimes joke and say, oh, no, I can't go to therapy because my swag will go away. That's not healthy. And it's very hypocritical if I'm telling other people, oh, maybe you should go to therapy. Like therapy is good. I feel like everybody should do it. But I'm sitting here and I can't do it. So that's also kind of why I wanted to do IMOA because I have became my own therapist. And because I know I want something to be bigger than myself and I want something that other people feel like they can be like that, that's a lot of why I've dove into myself and why I'm just being open about some of these things that I struggle with. So a hard part about all of this and me just growing up is I have to accept that sometimes doing less is enough. I have to accept that rest counts and that not always being okay is perfectly normal. I have to realize that I don't always have to perform. I don't always have to be okay. I don't always have to have it figured out. But at the end of the day, like that's enough and that's okay. And that's all a part of my progression and that's a part of my aesthetic. So if I had to sum all this up, because I don't intend to, this podcast isn't going to be about me. It's, you'll probably get pieces of me as we continue on. But like I said, I did want to give y'all a little bit into my world, into my head. But I will say, getting to know myself has hands down been the most challenging thing I've ever done. Sometimes I see progression, but a lot of times I see me regressing back to my same old cycles. But it's a process. And during this process, I'm starting to understand that understanding myself isn't about fixing who I am, it's just finally listening to me. And that's where the real healing is going to start. So I do want to say, if you're in that space where everything starts to feel too heavy, where the mirror feels a little too honest, just know that it is okay. You're not broken for feeling that way. You're just becoming more aware of yourself. And you're becoming more aware of yourself for yourself. So just chase it and just know that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that go through that. I hope this doesn't sound arrogant in any way because I'm not an arrogant person. Um, a lot of times, and I guess I portray it this way. A lot of times, people that I'm around, family, friends, coworkers, anybody, they see the output, but they don't know the input of myself, and they a lot of times think I always have it figured out. And I am always good, and I do appreciate that. I'm glad that I would uphold this image and that I don't let things that I have been through, things I've seen, things I've heard, um, weigh me down a lot. But it gets heavy sometimes. It is challenging, and so again, everybody got things they go through, and I think we forget that sometimes. And I was I think people, they sometimes get stuck in their own world and forget that other people have their own worlds. So I'm not gonna ramble too much longer because, like I said, I don't intend for this episode to be that long, because it is very uncomfortable for me to even talk about anything about myself, more let alone anything that like I feel like I struggle with. But like I said as well, how can I expect anybody to come on here and put their vulnerability on here and say anything that they're thinking? Not even necessarily a vulnerability thing. How can I feel like anybody can come on here and be themselves and talk about any or everything if I don't feel like I can do that? So that's why I just wanted to share a little bit of myself with y'all. But I want to thank all of y'all for listening. Thank you, Imo family. And I'll catch y'all next time. Love y'all. Mean it. I guess like, subscribe, share, whatever. You ain't got to. It ain't even about all that. But I'll catch y'all next time. It's getting too long. Okay, goodbye.